Welcome everybody. We'll get started right on time, 10:30. So this is Math 142 College Math. What I describe it as is a sort of a survey of mathematics. So we'll be talking about a lot of different types of mathematics as we go through. I'm Michael Littlecrow. You can call me Mike, Michael, Littlecrow, LC, Dr. Mike, whichever you prefer. All of them work. Hey, you works for me as well, but we'll get to know each other a little bit better as we go through. A little bit about myself. Well, first of all, I'll let you know the overview of the class or how I do things. I am recording this, so that's why I wear this little microphone. It gets there. I use, I don't know, QuickTime that's why I like MacBooks. They have kind of a built-in screen recorder. Anything that appears up here will be recorded along with my voice. And then I post it to a YouTube channel I have. So if you missed anything or you wanted to see things a second time, you can go back to those. I'll put those links in Canvas. And I'll do it. I've been working on the technology and stuff. Last class wasn't so smooth, but I think this will work out good. And so if you miss a class, it still will be recorded. If you're here, but again, you missed a part or you wanted to see some more, you can come back and do that as well. So I started doing this actually it was about 2015, 2016, not because I wanted to, but because my wife forced me to. She was taking a master's degree program in interdisciplinary studies. She was taking a class on media production and such for that part. And she says, she started seeing what other people were doing on YouTube. She says, you got to put your teaching on YouTube. So no, other people do that. I just teach in class, right? But anyway, she taught me how to do it. I was again reluctant, but the first semester I did it, I started doing this. It wasn't a screencast. I actually used a camera and was doing live streaming. But there was a student who lived down in Saskatoon, and this was like the third or fourth time she was taking this class. And the reason she couldn't finish, she was responsible for her family. There was times she couldn't make it up here, car breakdown, all sorts of things. And she could never finish up the class because just transportation and getting up here from Saskatoon's about 45 minutes away. Depending on traffic, it could be a little bit more. I taught a class down there once. So with the live streaming, she was able to watch every lecture, whether she was here or not. She tried to be here as much as she could, but when she wasn't here, she did it. She passed the class with a nice grade. I don't remember exactly what it was, but she did fine. She was able to finish. And I says, this is the way we do it. So sometimes I get pushback from my colleagues and they say, well, your students don't have to come to class anymore. And I said, well, that's up to them. But it's not, your grade is not based upon whether you're here in class or any other activity. You can still hate me and, it's not about our relationship. Hopefully we're going to like each other, but that's not what your grade's supposed to be about. Your grade is how much did you learn, right? So that's what I try to focus on is the course is set up. If you learn, you will get that grade that you deserve, right? And we'll both agree on it. You'll say, yeah, I learned this. You probably are harder on yourself. You might say, oh, you learned it to a C. I said, no, you actually learned it to a B or an A. So hopefully we push you in that way and allow everything to happen, and that your grade represents that you engaged with this class and you learned, not that you got sick and weren't able to finish it, but that, well, maybe you got sick, but you could still watch it. So that's how I've got that set up. A little bit about myself. I taught at Scottsdale Community College for 14 years as a residential faculty, which means this was my full-time job. 2018, my wife was in graduate school at ASU. I was thinking of doing a degree over there, so I transferred, got a job over there so that I could get a tuition waiver and finish up a program. So I do a program and a doctorate. So I did that. And my doctorate's not in mathematics, it's in educational leadership and innovation. So I focused on innovating classes to make them engaging. And I coordinate the online pre-calculus at ASU. And my goal has been to make that online class feel as much like an in-person class as possible. So I, again, with a lot of help from my wife, made videos that are hopefully, that students tell me at least, this almost feels like being in a real class. Online is real too, but it felt like, and then there I make myself available through Zoom, so we can do that. So we do it all over. So that was Scott. So I've been at ASU for, I think, about 6 years now. Before that, I taught at Oregon State University. Anyone from Northwest? Where from? Oregon? Awesome. What part? Beaverton. That's where I grew up for the most part. Went to Sunset High School. Did you go to Sunset High School? No. Okay. So, but you know kind of the area. I was born in Seattle. Dad traveled around a bit, and then grew up in Oregon. Taught at Oregon State for 6 years. That's sort of where I learned to teach. I came back to teaching. I taught high school for 1 year. Didn't do so good. After getting my bachelor's, left teaching for 13 years to do financial planning. Was on my way to, my boss was really good at what he did. I keep in touch with him. I trained his son. They're both multimillionaires. If I wanted to be a multimillionaire, well, I do want to be one, but I didn't want to be in financial planning for the rest of my life. It just wasn't what so I came back to teaching. But I know if I would have stuck with it, because they're both multimillionaires now, if that was my goal, I could have done that, because I was with good people that were in that direction. But I took a choice of, I want to do something I enjoy. I get paid okay, not millions of dollars, but I get paid okay. So that's my goal for you, is that as you are learning and doing your program, you start thinking about what you really enjoy to do. Because I'm 60, when I was in financial planning, I was looking, how can I retire by the time I'm like 50 or 55? Because I wanted to get out of it. I'm 62 now, and I'm just looking, how can I keep working as a teacher, because I love what I do. Maybe not as much as what I'm doing, but so I want to help you get to that stage where you're in something you love so much. You're not thinking about retirement. You're just thinking, how can I keep doing this and have a rich life over here as well? So the mathematics we're going to take a look at will help with all of that. That's one of the reasons I like teaching this class particularly. It is not like an algebra class where you have to learn the math skills and one thing builds on the other, and if you miss this chunk, you really can't do that chunk. It's going to be, well, let's see if I can get all this stuff to work. We'll go to our course calendar here. And we've got 12 chapters, 12 different topics. Not really completely different, but so today we're doing our introduction, so we'll do that. And we go from 10:30 till 12:25. We won't push it too tight, because at 12:30 I have another class coming in here, so they're probably going to be coming in. My standard operating procedure is to finish probably about 30 minutes early, so that gives us time for individuals that might have questions. Again, everything's recorded. What you're going to see is that every chapter, for the most part, is a 2-day experience. So today we will do sort of the lecture part, or the direct instruction part, to build an understanding of measurement. So when we get into that. Next Monday, we do chapter 1 again. We do the developing proficiency part, which is an opportunity for me to stop talking, you to work on things, and get sort of the homework done. So I built a class where you just come regularly and work through things. You should be able to, most students are able to get the majority of the homework done, the majority of the learning. Because when you come here, if you're working on your homework and you have a question, you can get it answered right away. Sometimes it's just a little misunderstanding on something, but if you don't understand that part, you can't get to the next part, right? It's sort of a block. But if you get someone that says, oh, it's just this, oh, that's all, and you move on, you keep going. And so that's it. Sometimes I've had students, come on in, make yourself at home. I've had students who come and they'd never ask a question. I asked one of us, I says, you always come here, but you never have any questions for me. And I asked you several times, you got any questions? No, I'm doing fine. And I said, you could do this somewhere. You could do this at home. She goes, no, I can't. I got 2 kids, and if I go at home, I don't get any studying done. So it's quiet here. I come here because it's quiet, not because I need any assistance. So whichever the reason is for you, you want to come here because it's a quiet place to study and sort of forces you to do your math. Sometimes that's what I do. There's no television and I start watching TV. I'll take a little break. Well, 8 hours later, that break is over, right? And I've had a nice little TV watching experience, but I didn't get any of my work done. So sometimes coming here, that'll do it for you. Some of you, though, maybe you've got a nice system set up. Maybe you've got a long commute, like my student from Saskatoon. And maybe it might be more beneficial if you stayed home and didn't do 2 hours of commuting, you could get more done. And so I leave it open to that. Attendance is not part of a grade, right? Because that's an action. Actions are important, but what you learn is more important. So your grade will always reflect how you did in the class, whether you learned it here or whether you learned it someplace else. Okay, is about what you learned. So again, I get a little pushback on this, but the second day of class, one of the best ways to know that you don't need to come to class is get the homework done beforehand. I got no questions. I got the homework done, and people will email, can I take it off? I said, that's up to you. You come, there's probably not much for you to do unless you want to try to get ahead. But that's what so the second day of class is really, I called it a tutored math. So it's an opportunity to come, and I'm here, colleagues are here, we can work through things. Again, it might just be a better working environment for you. It might be that you have questions from time to time, whatever it is. But it also might be, I got this traffic deal, I'm commuting, and maybe your decision is better to do it somewhere else. And I will support that. Okay, so I support your learning and choices. With that said, we won't go over a lot of course policies because I really only have 2 class, I'll call them rules and not really rules, but they're based on, so I guess what I didn't introduce is my subject area in math that I focus on. I'm not a mathematician, I'm a math educator. It's about teaching math. I could have been a mathematician. Mathematician, I think, is someone who sort of does math for a living. I guess I teach math for a living, but I don't consider myself a mathematician. I do what's called ethnomathematics. So I study how different peoples, different cultures learn and use mathematics. So one example is I work with elementary teachers. So that's a different type of math that I'm teaching, a different area of learning than what I do at the college level. But that's an ethnic group, young kids, right? I've done some work with the even preschool time, and they're working with math. There's also cultural aspects. I'm Turtle Mountain Chippewa on my mother's side, and French, so we're Métis. It's a mixed culture, French and Indian. My grandfather's also Cree from up in Canada, so we've got that mixture. My dad's side, I'm Saxon, Welsh, and Irish, so there's that mix. And so each of those cultures approached math differently. And we're going to do a little activity just to break it off, nothing that's going to be tested or anything, but I'm going to demonstrate to you how math came to be. Does anyone know, what would you say, how did math develop? Have you ever thought of that? No, if I did, I said, get out of my mind. I got to think of other things. We're going to talk about how math developed. And anyway, so we'll do that a little bit. Where was I going with this? So anyway, so my focus is on sort of the cultural aspects. This class is great for that because you'll see we've got a lot of different topics. This first part is a little bit more mathy than other parts, but we'll look at converting between measurement systems. That's basically what that part's about. We'll look at linear, so that's kind of that was put in by the coordinators for, it's very much like an algebra class, as well as chapter 3 on percentages. We get into exponential growth. So there's really 2 types of growth we talk about here is linear or straight line growth, and then exponential that picks up pace. And then chapter 4 is a mix of those 2 together. So we do some modeling. But as you follow along with 2 and 3, you're also going to learn the tools that we use in chapter 4. So chapter 4 is the one chapter, because we had a late start, we don't have 2 days at it, but you're going to see it's going to take a little bit of an introduction, and then we'll get right into the homework, because it's really going to say what you did in chapter 2 and chapter 3, you're going to put that together and do chapter 4. And so it's those two together. But it gets us to think about growth, and growth can be negative. Okay, so we could also call that decline or something. But how do things grow? If your money, you put it in the bank and you get a interest rate, right, which is usually a percentage. That's going to be an exponential. Okay, if you grow by an amount, like every year you get a raise of $5 an hour, that's a linear growth. So we'll compare the two. Then we get into financial math, and this is an important part. We do savings and we do loans. So that's kind of the two sides of financial math. What you're going to see is both the mathematics is the same for both. Just depends on what side of the table you're sitting on. If you're loaning the money to the bank for them to use, you're getting the interest. That's called savings. You're on this side of the bank where you're giving your money's earning stuff. If you do a loan, you're just on the other side of the table. You're taking somebody else's money who's loaned it to you, and you're paying them the interest. The mathematics is the same, the result's not, right? So we're going to compare those things. We use borrowing as a tool in a capitalist society, which we live in. We might not ascribe to it fully, but we are in the middle of a capitalist society. We have to accept that. So how do we use the tools of finance to get the goals we want done? And again, we may each have different goals, so we might use them differently. My goal is to teach you how to analyze it so that you can make the choices that get you to where you want to be. Okay, let's see. Here we go. Okay. And so that takes us to the midterm. We've got a day where we're going to do a group midterm. And what that means is anyone who comes to class and wants to study that way, there'll be a practice test, but we'll go through it. The exams are all multiple choice. I said, it's easy. We give you all the answers. We just disguise those answers with 4 good-looking false answers. So you got to choose the right answer. But they are all multiple choice. So as long as you can recognize the right answer, you'll be able to come up with it, which is sometimes helpful because if you do a calculation and you're way off, that answer will probably not even be there. You go, okay, I'm doing something wrong. Let me come back. And so exams are all multiple choice. Okay. So we'll do a group one together where we can put all our collective understandings together. And we can even give some points on that. And then we'll take an individual version of it that's multiple choice, and we go forward with that. We got 5 more afterwards. 7, we're doing some things with Venn diagrams. We do probability, which is actually, when I was trying to be a mathematician, I was going to do actuarial math, which is insurance. They'll decide on how much they should charge you for your car insurance, your life insurance, whatever, based on probability. So this is an area I have some expertise in. So we do 2 chapters 8 and 9 are both probability. One's basic probability, one's a little bit more advanced. So we do that. And then we get into counting, which relates back actually to probability. So it's how do we count things when there's a lot of them? So we get some techniques there. And then we get into statistics for 11 and 12. And again, that's something everybody will use in one way or another. If you're in sports, you use statistics. My brother's like a statistics notebook that, he loves sports, and since he's a kid, collected baseball cards and stuff. He can tell you who was the one that got so many home runs in this year or that year, and he's like an encyclopedia of sports. That's statistics, all the data that goes with that. We use it in education. You'll see it probably in your school. If you have kids, we look at statistics to know if they're growing at the right rate. Right, we all grow differently, but when are they growing too fast or too slow? I had 2 cousins, and that's what they realized. One of them, he just wasn't getting tall enough, or he wasn't like his other brother. And then his younger sister, same, and they had a form of dwarfism, and the girl, they caught it early enough that they were able to give some treatments, and she was, grew to a little higher side. The other boy, by the time they caught it, they really couldn't do much. But they're both doing well. They're both great people. But that was how they could do it. They just thought, he doesn't seem to be growing. Let's see if there's something. Okay, so that statistics can help us with those things. Is my child okay? Is it just in this variation part? It's okay to be here or here, but we got to be careful if we're way at the extremes, right? Because maybe something needs to be done. So we'll do, that's basically the class. And then again, the final exam is not cumulative. It's only over those next 6 chapters. And we'll do the same thing. We'll have a day where we do a group final exam where we just kind of practice together. We're all going to get 100% on that. And then we take the actual individual final exam, which again, I think it's about 30 questions. They're all multiple choice. So again, we give you all the answers. We just disguise them with some wrong answers that look really good. But we'll help you to work your way through it. Okay. Any questions so far? Doing okay? All right. Yes, sir. You can leave. You can even not show up and you won't get marked down. I will take attendance sort of this first day just to make sure everyone's here so that, because otherwise if they're not here and they don't contact me, we drop them so they don't get this tuition bill for something that they just never intended on staying. And I can only do that on the first, I think, 2 days. So you all will be fine. Anyone who's not here, I will contact them and say, hey, I'm going to have to drop you because you weren't here. And if I hear back from them, I'll leave them in the class. But if I don't, I drop them so they don't have a tuition bill. That's the main thing. After that, again, I'm not going to track attendance because I believe one of the most important things about college is that you learn to make your own decisions. I've got a lot of colleagues who are very specific. If you're 5 minutes late, the door's locked, and all this stuff. Attendance, you got to be here, or else that goes back to those days. My grandparents went to Indian boarding school, so a lot of my view on things comes from that, where school was used to just keep people away from other things. They were afraid if you weren't in school, you were doing bad stuff. Maybe you were farming or something, doing with your family. But that's the mindset of these truancy laws. You got to be in school because we're afraid if you're out on the streets, you're doing no good. My thing is, school's supposed to be about learning. So if you're learning, I don't care if you're here or there, just keep learning. And the other part is when I did my student teaching, it was in Salem, Oregon, actually, in the 1980s. How many of you were alive in 1980? Okay, what? Okay, so we won't call you out, but yeah, I graduated in high school in 1980. So I started teaching in the mid, so I was doing my student teaching, that was about 1984. I had a student who got the highest score on the district math test in Salem, Oregon. I thought, man, that makes me a good teacher. I look at me. And then I looked at who it was. It was my student who was sick and never in class. So she learned on her own. So it just taught me that students will learn or they won't learn based upon themselves. And I do my best to be the best teacher I can be, but the learning occurs in your mind. And it doesn't matter whether you're here or not. It matters how you engage, right? So I had this student, never, I met her maybe twice or 3 times, but she had an illness and wasn't able to come in, but she got the highest score. So she used her time wisely. So that tells me it doesn't matter where you are as long as you're engaging with the learning, you will learn. And that's the other reason I do recording. Okay, so this is going to be posted and available to you, and there'll be a link in Canvas. Okay. Great. And then actually we got an extra day so we can kind of do a review, do a group final exam, and then do an individual final exam. Let's see, we're almost 11. Okay, we're doing good. Let's go back. So you'll find that the course calendar, the other thing I do is I don't micromanage with due dates. Some teachers do that, and I have nothing against that. I have students that I've recommended to other teachers because they let things slide too far in my class, and they said, can can you just give me some strict due dates? And I said, no, I can't do that. That's not me. But I know someone who does that. So I recommend them go do that teacher. And they were able to actually get through because they had, if they didn't get it in, they got no points. For me, I say, if you didn't get it in, you still need to learn it. So I don't have strict due dates. In fact, I don't think there's any due dates in there, except that this calendar will tell you, we're going to take a look at chapter 1 today. So it would be good if you have it done by the time we start chapter 2. Not mandatory, but if we don't, then we do chapter 2, and you got now chapter 1 and chapter 2 to do. Things will build up fairly quickly. If you keep on top of it, again, coming to class, it's not too bad. The workload's not too bad, but the workload can become bad, and I've had students get 6 behind. So the week before the midterm, they're trying to learn the whole semester, the half semester worth of work. Some have done it to some success, but how much of that really stuck with them, I'm not sure. And what I want is, I don't want you to just learn things and do well on a test and get a grade. Maybe that's what you want. I'll help you with that. But I also want you to take this into your life, right? I want you to take these lessons with you. And that's what a number of my students have told me, especially like with the financial math part. They'll go to work and they'll talk about retirement. They understand the concepts they're talking about save a little over a long period of time. You build your nest egg. You'll be able to do what you want to do with your life. Because again, we are in a capitalist system. It's hard to live without money, maybe impossible. There's times when I haven't watched it and I gotta wait for that paycheck because I got $5 in my pocket. I got gas to get. I got this. I've been there. I don't like going there, but and again, I don't always. Sometimes it's fun to spend money, but if you don't plan it out, you might overspend. It happens. So that's kind of the way to watch yourself, is just watch that calendar. It's in the syllabus as well, which is down here. It's a little bit more formalized. It's got stuff from the college. It's got stuff from the department. And then it's got a few things like my calendar in there. So, and again, I was going to talk about my 2 rules, wasn't I? And then I didn't talk about them. Okay, so I'm also dyslexic, which means I sometimes go in circles. My thinking patterns are kind of strange. I almost dropped out of school because of math, because I wasn't doing so well. And then the semester I was kind of deciding to do that, I got fortunate if I was taking a math class a second time because I didn't get what I needed out of it. And that professor at Portland State University had found out that semester that he was dyslexic. He had his kids were having some problems in school learning, so he had them tested. While they were testing his students, his children, they said, well, let's test you because sometimes this is hereditary. And then they told him, this is what he told the class as well. He says, sorry to tell you this, but you don't know how to read. I've got my PhD in math. Of course I know how to read. No. What you know how to get information off of a page, but what you do is not called reading. And so he said, he scans a page, but he didn't read like this is what they call reading. Each letter. I said, that's what I do. So sometimes I turn the book upside down because I can read backwards sometimes better than I can read forwards. It helped me to focus, but I could read forwards and backwards, but I didn't read like the way they teach you to read. So but he worked with me. I'd go to all of his office hours. He just, instead of trying to get me to do it the standard way, he helped me to see what worked for me. And I got through and I started, this is cool. That's when I decided to become a math teacher, not an engineer. My dad wanted me to be an engineer. I said, that's not what I want. I want to help people like me be successful in math. So that's why I'm here. Again, I lose my track of thought. I start talking about something, then I forget what I was talking about. So, 2 rules. First of all, when you think, it's a little philosophical, but when you think about life, what do you really own? Is this my phone? Well, I call it my phone, but if I drop it and it breaks, it's not my phone anymore. It's broken, right? It doesn't work. Someone steals it, it's now their phone, if they can use it. I know they got all these security things, but this is not really, it's mine to use now, but it's not really mine. It doesn't really belong to me. Things that we think that belong to us really don't. Even our bodies, if you think you get to my age, I'm 62 now, The body don't listen to me. If it was my body, it would say, I'd tell it, don't get old. Don't hurt in the knees anymore. But I tell it and it doesn't listen. It's not my body. My body's going to do what it wants to do. So we don't really even own our body. But the one thing I believe we own, and again, this is from my look at cultural aspects, is the one thing I've learned is we own our actions. When we do something, we did it, right? We own that. We have to. I never wanted to. I'd break mom's stuff and no, that wasn't me. Yes, it was. Going to school, going to the restroom before lunch. There's always that kid who was screaming and yelling and stuff, get the rest of the class in trouble. I never admitted it. One day I realized that was me. Yeah, I was paying attention as I went. I'm that kid that's always screaming. I don't know why I was screaming, but I just did it. But I never admitted it. But it was me. So finally I did. So our actions, we own our actions, right? We have to own up to it. There are two types of actions we can make: skillful actions and unskillful actions. That's the way they divided it. What would you think is a skillful action? What makes an action skillful? What's that?
Thought out.
It's thought out, and it's thought out to do what? Achieve some kind of goal. Yeah. If you think it out, you do it, carry out the action, and you're successful, that's a skillful action. Unskillful action, opposite, right? Maybe you didn't think it out. Maybe it didn't work out the way you wanted it to. That's an unskillful action. The concept is try to be more skillful in your actions and abandon or be less unskillful. It's not like sinful and unsinful, or it's not try to be perfect or anything, but just try to be more skillful. So those are kind of the two rules. And what I found is there's different ways, part in school where skillful things are we're learning the content we're needing to learn. So we're done with this class and we move on and we get our degree and then we go out in the world and do what we learned to do, right? So being skillful is different for each person. Some of you, how many of you listen to music or something, podcast, while you're doing your homework? Any of you? Okay. Do you find, and you probably do that because you find that helps you focus, right? That's skillful. I do that and I start listening. I like jazz and I get into it and I stop working. So it's an unskillful practice for me. I like listening to music, but when I listen to music, I just want to chill. So for me, I'm trying to study, listening to music is unskillful. I try it oftentimes and sometimes I'll forget. Let me try again. I get into the music and I stop doing the work I was supposed to do. So each activity is not necessarily, it's not the activity that's skillful or unskillful, it's how it affects us, right? The result it gets us. So sometimes, and I found that I had a student had actually accommodations that she was supposed to take her tests in a quiet room. So she did that the first time. She didn't do so well on the test. She says, but I know this stuff. Can I take it again? I said, well, I got a second version of that test. So yes, I'll have you take it again, but they're not going to proctor it for you there. You could take it in class, but the class is going to be doing some other things that might be a little noisy. She said, well, I'll work with that. We'll see if it's better. She did, and she aced that test. And she says, when everyone else was talking, it helped me focus on my work because I was able to block it out. When I'm in those quiet rooms, she says, I start thinking about all sorts of things. So again, even the experts tell us what's supposed to work for us. They don't know. We know what's working best for us, or at least we can find it out. So that's what I want you, that's my only two rules. So if you look over the syllabus and it says this, that, and the other thing, and attendance, and do what's skillful. And that's even with coming to class. Be here if it's skillful for you, if you're getting things done. If you're able to get more stuff done by not having to travel here, that's great. Focus on the learning part and all things will come together. All right. I think that's about enough to get us started. So we'll get into this. So what you'll see in the Canvas is each chapter has a little module. We'll call this module for chapter 1. There'll be the class lecture. There's a textbook, which is a free textbook. It's a PDF. You can look over it. It will have most of the stuff we go over in printed form in case you're a person who learns by reading over things and looking at examples. So that's there. Then each section will have two activities, a homework, which about 40 questions in there, and then a homework quiz. We'll actually do it backwards. When I finish the lecture, we'll work through the homework quiz has 5 or 6 questions, depending upon which chapter it's from. We will actually use those to kind of make sure we covered everything. So at the end of the lecture, I'll actually pull up the quiz and we'll work through it. The thing is the way this homework system works, your questions will be slightly different. You'll have different numbers. So when I work it out and I get an answer, you can't just put my answer in for your answer. What you need to do is sort of take notes or look at how I'm doing it, and then you do it again. So it's also practice for you. But we will go through each of the quizzes. And again, it will be recorded. So if you weren't here, you'll still go to the end of the recording and you'll see that that's where the quizzes have been worked out. And so, because I find that that's one way of learning is seeing examples of how to solve particular problems. And then you say, okay, I'll do that same type of thing. Come back, the homework will give you some more practice with that. And one thing I do is, again, I run this as a survey type class. We're not trying to make you mathematicians or mathematical experts. We are exposing you to various types of mathematics and want you to practice doing it. So what I do, I think there's plenty of homework in there. And if you can do 70% of that, you'll get the full credit. So each one is worth 15 points. You'll get the full 15 points with 70% or more. Now you can do more if you're, hey, this is fun and I'm learning. You can do more than 70%, but as soon as you hit 70%, I will come back in and give you the full 15. Now it doesn't happen automatically. You know how systems work. It would give you, 70%, and you get 70% of 15%, which is about 10 points or something like that. But I go back in, once we get to chapter 2, I'll take a look back. So it'll sit there for a while, but if you see that you've got 70%, just go ahead, and if you want to move forward, you can. Or if you want to stop, you can stop. It's enough. And I'll do it both for the homework and the quiz, but hopefully on the quizzes you're getting 100% because we've worked through them together. But that's the other part of it, is I'm just looking complete enough and you'll be there. A little bit later, I'll talk about, so the 2 quizzes, or the 2 exams, the midterm and the final, comprise, I think about, I think there's 70% of the total grade. But I have in here an optional project that you could do that reduces that amount of the exams and puts more control into you. And we'll talk about it later as we get down in the semester, but just to let you know, I call it the math of blank. You fill in the blank. So it could be the math of baseball, the math of football if you're into sports, math of soccer, math of being a nurse, math of being a preschool teacher. I've had everything done, just about everything. I started doing this when I was at Oregon State. My department, I taught in the Educational Opportunities Program, which was also a program that I was a member of as a student that got me through my bachelor's degree. And they would send, and we worked quite a bit with the athletic department. So there was who was it? I think it was a lineman the first time, a football lineman who needed 1 extra credit. I said, can you do a project with them? So we did a special project. And I said, so it had to be about math. I said, well, I want you to write me a paper, 5-page paper, about the mathematics of being a lineman. But I got some formulas or something. I said, well, let me give you an example. You're a big guy. You line up and the guy across from you is a bigger guy. What's your strategy? He goes, well, I'm going to hit him down low, because if I hit him up high, he's bigger than me. He's probably going to push me down. So I go down low and hopefully I get him down. I said, okay, the guy across from you is smaller than you. What do you do? Well, I'm bigger, so I can hit him up high and get him out of the way. It says that's the mathematics of your position, right? You're sizing up with your mind, bigger, smaller, and then you're doing a strategy. That's mathematics. And so he found some other things, and then I got the field goal kicker. What's the mathematics of kicking field goals? So that's the idea, is I want you to find the mathematics of something that you're interested in. Could be a hobby, could be your degree. And what you're going to do is you're going to find something of interest, And it'll be interesting, more interesting to me because I learned things that I never knew. I had a pilot in this class. He did the mathematics of dew point. I never, you hear dew point on the news. I never knew what it was for. If you're a pilot, I guess it's a very important thing. I've forgotten because I was paying attention, but it was years ago. And he could tell us, when you're a pilot, that dew point, if it's not a good, then you don't go up because you get into the clouds too fast or something like that. It had to do with that. Cool. I've had two guys work together. They were both football players, and they were teaching a flag football for little kids. And he says the kids we knew they weren't the best athletes, so they weren't going to win because they were the fastest or the biggest or anything. He says, so we taught them geometry, how to have triangles, and so they were able to pass off to each other. They were able to stay, so they took a geometric approach and they did pretty well. So those kind of things, how do we use math in what we're interested in doing? So that's a project. Again, even if you don't need the points, you're doing well on the test, sometimes it's an interesting thing to do. Had one do the mathematics of jeeping, driving a Jeep, because he also modified his, so there's a lot, you got to get the angles right on the axles and stuff. And I've got some examples to share with you, but that's another option. And again, it puts it, so if you do one of those projects, even if you don't do well on the exams, those extra points, you just kind of follow along and you do the homework, you get everything to 70%, you're going to get all those points, you're going to get probably an A. If you don't do a few things, you probably get a B, but it's really hard. I mean, you have to really work at getting anything below a B in this class. I mean, work at forgetting to do things completely. Okay. So as long as you're coming along, you're gonna get through it, and you're gonna find how you're using math in your life. I had one student, this one last story. I also taught this down at the Salt River High School back when it was going in the evenings for adults over there. And there was one community member that the reason she chose her major, which was being a paralegal, so helping out lawyers with law stuff, because she was interested in the law, but she also thought this got to be something you don't need any math for. When she did the math of blank, she did the math of being a paralegal, and she found out a paralegal actually does all the math in the office because the lawyers don't want to do the math. So if you do a family, a divorce case, the paralegal is the one that's going to have to do the math of splitting up the assets. If, in any case, the paralegal was actually the one that did the math, and she told me at the end, but I feel like after going through this class and seeing all the different things, I can handle that. I know which book to go look in. I know maybe who to call if I need some help with the mathematics. So while she went into her career choice because she didn't think there would be any math, she found out it actually had a lot of math, but she, because of this class, felt comfortable in doing it. So that's the goal of that project. Okay. Tired of hearing my voice yet? I am. So anyway, time for you all to talk. We're going to take attendance, but instead of me calling out the list of names and stuff, I'm going to take a seat because I'm getting tired. What I'd like you to do is if you could just introduce yourself. You don't have to do just your first name. I'll probably be able to find you on the list. If you could give us your name, what you're studying here, or what you're thinking of studying, and where you're from. Some of you are here locally, but that's always kind of cool to find out where people are from. And if you want one more thing that's interesting about yourself, and again, it's all voluntary. Just as long as you give me your name, I'll be able to cut you off. But you can give us your major, where you're from, and something interesting about yourself. What it'll help us do is then we connect with other people. Oh, you're studying that same thing? I didn't know that. And we'll go from there. Who would like to start? Front row. Wonderful. Cool. Gotcha. Elena, nice to meet you.
name is Malachi. Very emotional.
Yonkers, awesome. Darlings, okay, cool. I got rid of my middle name. I don't use it anymore, but it was Eaton. Okay, so we'll go to the homework quiz. And again, it's probably better not to try to follow along with me because your numbers will be different, but just to kind of follow along with the examples we do. Okay, so this is what the homework quiz looks like. Um, I've changed some of these things. I think what I've done is you can actually try the homework quiz 3 or 4 times. For each question, you get 2 tries. So if you get it wrong the first time, it'll tell you you're wrong. You could change your answers. But it is somewhat like a quiz, but it's not like one of these where, oh, it's cheating if you get help. No, we want to go through these. Actually, because I did it with the other class, it's already giving us the answers. So let's see. Let me back up. I think I want to reset this. I want to reset. Yeah. So this will give us some fresh ones. Oh, it says I can take it 10 times, so I forget. Okay. So here's this unit rate deal. 8 quarts for $7.29. How do I go about getting dollars per quart? So dollars per quart. So dollars go in the top. And in the bottom, which is I'm going to divide 8 quarts. Just abbreviate like that. So I take 7.29 divided by 8, and that's going to give me my answer. 0.9 something. Someone want to help out with that? Anyone with the calculator? 7.29 divided by 8. 0.91. And again, the units on that will be dollars per quart. And on the teacher's version, this is nice because all I have to do is click on this little key and it will give us the answer, 0.91. So we can always check ourselves here. But quarts per dollar, do the same thing, but I flip it, right? So then I just take 8 divided by 7.29. I get 1 point something. So again, I just sort of look there. That gives us what? 1 point what? 10? 1.10. And again, we could fill it in there. 1.10. You do check the answer. Let me do this. Oh, I don't have a keyboard. Actually, I do. I'll just do 0.91 here, and then 0.1. Notice I don't have to put the 0 in, but when I check the answer, it says, yeah, it's correct. So you'll do the same thing. Go ahead and feel free to try these out. Check the answer. In the homework, you get sort of unlimited. I think it gives you 3 attempts with the same question. If you get it wrong, you get to try it again 3 times. After the 3rd time, you can ask for a similar question. So again, the idea is you can get to your 100%. You get to 70% is all you need to get to, but you do it multiple times. Same thing with the quiz. You get multiple attempts at these, but because sometimes, yeah, we make a little error or something. Okay. Using the factor label method. So that was the unit rates. And in the homework for each one in here, there'll be maybe 2, 3, 4 different types of questions. The factor label method, we want to convert 525 centimeters to meters. So one thing we didn't talk about in metric system, you can actually do it by moving the decimal, right? And that's what makes the metric system better. So, or easier to work with. Centimeters to meters, centimeters, 100 centimeters in a meter, if you remember that. We're going to see how it also works. Well, they told us right there, 1 meter is 100 centimeters. So what it tells us, we just need to move the decimal 2 places. Well, if the centimeters, hopefully you remember you're dividing out the centimeters so you can move it. Our answer is going to be 5.25. So you could almost, without a calculator, do it. But we're also going to do it sort of with the calculator method. The way this is set up is we're supposed to put our conversion factor here. So I see centimeters up here. What needs to go in the denominator? Centimeters, because I need to divide those out. In the numerator is going to go the other unit, the meters. So this is just a setup. How many meters? Well, 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. So that's what I'm putting there. I haven't done any math yet, but I'm just showing I understand how to do this system. And then here's where I actually put it in. And again, I've taken 525 divided by 100, and that's going to give me 5.25. Just moving over the decimal places. And what will be the units that are left? Well, centimeters are going to cancel. Meters are going to be left behind. So again, you'll do a number of these. I'll check the answer here, and we got it all right. Okay, so there'll be a number in the homework that give you some practice at doing these kind of things as well. The quiz will communicate what's important to do out of the homework, because the homework will actually have other types of things in there too, but it's saying get these 6 at least. So far, are we doing okay? Okay, so notice it has you using a particular method. Now you could also, there's apps out there, you could have put this in an app to do it, have it convert it for you, but sometimes the apps are more accurate than the amount that they're giving to you, so that they won't always match up with these. Okay. Hi. Yes. Okay, good. It is. Are we having fun yet? Yeah. Interesting. Okay. We're even having fun and maybe a little bit of interest. So, okay. So this one is what we want to think. This is also a conversion, even though we're not really thinking of it in terms. So if our car can drive 480 miles on a tank of 24 gallons, what that sort of is giving us is that it's saying if I have 24 gallons is somehow equal to 480 miles. If I got 24 gallons, I can drive 480 miles. If I need to drive 480 miles, I need 24 gallons in my tank. So it's kind of like this. And so this gives us our 2 conversion factors, either 24 gallons over 480 miles. I'll just put in. Or the other conversion factor, which again would be the same, is both equal to 1, 480 miles over 24 gallons. So again, the question doesn't seem to be a conversion factor, but it's really, we're going to do it in the same way. So if I've got 47 gallons, I want to know how far can I drive. Well, I'm going to use the one with the gallons in the denominator, right? I'm going to need this one. I want to divide out the gallons, and I want to be left with miles. So I put here, oops, I got to switch over. I put in my gallons, and in the top is going to be miles. And how many miles? 480. And in how many gallons? 24. So in this case, we're actually going to multiply and divide because we don't know, we don't have a unit rate, right? But we could do it this way, is how we want to set it up. And then so we take 47 times 480 divided by 24, and that's going to leave us with how many miles we're able to drive on those 47 gallons, right? And it's about twice, almost. So I'm going to say probably 800 and some, maybe 900 miles. Can anyone do that for us? 47 times 480 divided by 24. Do it here if I had my calculator. I got a calculator. 940, perfect. Awesome. So we got them both. 40 miles. And then for the bottom one, we do the same thing, but we flip, right? Because now we're given how many miles we need to drive. Put the miles in the bottom, the gallons in the top, multiply straight across, divide by what's in the bottom. You okay with that part? Okay. So we'll leave that one as your activity. But you'll see that this is the only tool we need is two things are equal. We can make a fraction because that fraction becomes 1, right? We can multiply that, and we're going to convert out the units we don't want into the units we do want. That's all there is to this whole lesson. Okay. Anyone want to see it? We could do it. Oh, yeah, let's do the next one. Okay. Because, oh yeah, we're getting a little tight on time. I want to get through all of these. This one is a challenging one, but it's the same deal, okay? Conversion factors, right? The problem is this cost of gasoline. We talked about this a little bit. If I'm in Europe and I bought it for 1.21 euros per liter, how much did I pay in dollars per gallon? Because that's what I understand. I want to know if it's cheap or not. Sounds kind of cheap, $1.21. Well, €1.21 per liter, but if we convert, we're going to see it's not really that cheap. So here's our factors. That $1 at that time was about 0.876 euros, so we're going to convert that. And then 1 gallon is always about 3.785 liters, so about 1 to 4, roughly. Okay, so what we do is we start off with the given fact, and we'll write the units. This is euros, and then we've got liters, 1 liter in the bottom. We're going to multiply that by one of these. Do you want to convert the money first or the liters first? Any preference? The money. Thanks. So we want to get rid of the euros and turn them into dollars, so we use this top one. And again, the euros we want to divide out, so that goes in the bottom. And the fact we have is 0.876. The top, we've got $1. So euros have now canceled, and our units are going to be in dollars when we do this. But we're not done yet. We still got liters, but we don't want the liters. So how do we get rid of liters? Since liters is in the bottom, where does it has to be in the top. So it's always this opposite. So liters is down there, so we need liters up here. That's liter. No, that's liters. And then gallons will be in the denominator. So we got 1 gallon is 3.785. And fractions, we multiply straight across in the denominator, and then divide at the end. So we're going to get 1.21 times 3.785 times the 1, but we'll just skip over that. In the bottom, we've got 1 liter and 1 gallon, and so then in the bottom is going to be 0.876. So this is the math. Multiply the top, divide by the bottom, and our units, we got rid of liters here, is going to be dollars per gallon, which is exactly we wanted, dollars per gallon. So that's going to give us this number here. And again, anyone with a calculator, what do we come up with? 1.21 times 3.785 divided by 0.876. I think it's $5 something, just because I've done this enough times. 1.21 times 3.785, and then divide by 0.876. And 22 cents. Yes, Yes. So this is, if you take any chemistry classes, you'll do this a lot, chemistry, where you have like a two-step conversion. Because you have to get rid of, you got to get euros to dollars and liters to gallons. And I'll just save ourselves. We'll just, instead of checking, we'll just click here, 23. So that must have been a number more than twice. So you have to round up. So watch for that. You might be off by a cent or something. Okay, so we okay with that one? So again, it's the same thing we were doing, but it had two conversions and it wasn't set up for us. These last two, I don't want to rush them. They're a little, but I'll give these a try. What we'll do is we'll pick up on, today's Wednesday, we'll pick up next Monday during the work session. So I'll record it as well. So if you're not here, that's fine. But these ones are basically the same thing. We're still doing that conversion, except they've got pages and they've got paper that's sold in groups of 500 pages. So you kind of have to do a multiplication and a division, but I think do the same thing. The end result is we just want something in dollars. How many dollars are we going to spend to do these reports? Okay. The one below it has time in it. So just remember you have to go from miles per hour to how many feet per second. So you've got a couple different conversions in there as well. But give them a try. You might want to work through the homework first, but like I said, we'll start off class on Monday. We'll come back to these because, again, we have that whole introduction part. Typically, a class will run us about 45 minutes to an hour of lecture working through these, and then you'll have some times to start into the activities. Second day of the class, second day of a section, it's a full work day. We won't do too much new stuff. It's just really start working on things and, be here when you need to and be somewhere else when you need to. Okay, be skillful. A Sharpie? We have. It does, and that's a nice thing. Yeah, it'll remember where you off, and so when you go back, just start it off. I don't. We've got like a blue or a black or a. These are all dry erase, which aren't going to do the same.